Welcome back, everyone, to the F1 show with Sam and Kireth. We're going to do a mid-season review of F1 because I feel like, we started the season. I remember talking with you and we were saying, give the season to Verstappen already. And we were like, yeah, it's completely changed. It's a really exciting season now. Starting to question whether Verstappen's actually even going to win it.
Yep.
Questioning whether Red Bull are going to be Constructors' Championship. And it's all sort of bubbling in the background. Ferrari gone hot and cold and everything. Hamilton going to... We're going to talk about all this stuff. So really hope you can enjoy it. Let's start off with Hungary. Now, I was actually with Formula E at the weekend in their season finale, so I haven't seen the Formula One. So
it's all a big surprise.
You've got to let me know. I know that there was a swap between Piastri and Norris didn't want to give it up, and there's all sorts of open debate on the radio. It seems to be quite embarrassing. From my perspective, I don't really understand what the drama's about.
I mean, if we go back for Oscar here, what a terrible way to have your first Formula One race win. Your first Formula One race. What a terrible way to have it. Leading the whole race, get undercut by your teammate because your teams decided they wanted to play safe over Hamilton, which that was never going to happen. And then the team basically begged Lando to give...
But I don't understand, if he got undercut by Norris, he just got undercut. I wasn't watching it, so to me it's just it's a bit... I don't understand fully the context, but it's okay, lost to go behind now.
I think basically the reason McLaren pitted Lando first was to cover Hamilton because the undercut's worth about 3 seconds there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was to cover Hamilton because he was about 4 off Lando, so a bad pit stop for Lando and they would swap places. So they put Lando out first, let him do his job, and then Oscar comes round, he pits the very next lap, and the undercut is so severe, it's put Lando ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand, going by radio messages, McLaren had a rule that they could race up to lap 40, and then that was it. That was how it was going to finish. Whoever was ahead at lap 40 was how.
And Lando was ahead at that point.
No, Oscar was ahead at that point, and then they pitted it again afterwards, which then put Lando ahead.
Yeah.
Which then part of their rules was to let Oscar back past. That was the long and short of it, but Lando really didn't want to do it.
But I just feel like McLaren have done Oscar really dirty, a lot. I don't know if people remember, but I remember at Silverstone, they just left him out in the rain and just destroyed his race.
Yep.
And they've really prioritised Lando, I think, this season.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
So, again, here it seems like they were actively trying to prioritise Lando in a way by having Oscar defend against Hamilton. And Oscar's just done. I just love it. I think Oscar's such a chill character.
Yeah.
And Lando, I think, is probably overthinking things, and he's got a lot of stuff on his plate. And,
Well, he's in the winning car for the first time, isn't he?
Yes, exactly.
He's never had a season where a car's been so competitive.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're kind of seeing a lot of stuff about mentality and sort of how he views these things. Do you think Lando is going to be a champion with that sort of mentality, given that he gave up the position to Oscar? Do you think he should have said... Would Michael Schumacher give up that position to Oscar Piastri?
Michael Schumacher definitely wouldn't have done it. I think Lando was right to do it this season. I think Red Bull was still going to pinch it. But next year, obviously being a stable rule set for the last year, McLaren are going to be right up there. Unless they somehow drop the ball massively over winter, they're going to be there. And I think he's going to rely on Oscar next season. So maybe play ball this season, getting a good book. So, look, remember this last year at Hungary where I let through for your first win? Now it's your turn to return the favour.
Hang on. Who's faster, Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris?
I think Lando's faster. Generally think Lando's a faster driver. I don't think there's a lot in it, but I think he's a faster driver. What do you think?
I think it could be really, really, really spicy.
Yes.
I don't think it's like Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber where Vettel was faster.
I think it's going to be more Hamilton-Rosberg.
Yes.
In those that particular year when Rosberg won the title.
And I think Lando Norris is a bit more like a Rosberg character.
You reckon?
Yeah.
What, more ruthless?
No, not more ruthless. I think he will let it get into his head a little bit more.
Oh, okay.
I think that season where Rosberg won, it took everything out of him, and he was almost, I think, seeing ghosts with Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I think Lando Norris, I've had this view of McLaren for a long time where Oscar just come in so chill, and Lando has to work really hard for it, and he's got a lot of other interest in his play, and I think Oscar just looks like he's gliding, had a really good rookie season. And was actually outshining Lando, I would say, at the end of last season.
Yeah.
And I think it would have got under Lando's skin. And a lot of people saying now that Lando's behaviour and sort of the way he's behaving on the radio and throwing the cap in the post-race Hamilton
think-
said, "Oh, you got a great car," and Lando sort of snapped back at him like, "Yeah, you had a fast car."
I think that's all to do with like the pressure from one though. Like obviously having a car which can win now. Obviously that brings on a lot more pressure. If you're fighting 7th or 8th in the grid, yeah, it's pressure. You're racing Formula One, but if all of a sudden you've gone from 7th and 8th to 1st, 2nd, that brings a lot more pressure. That brings a lot more. Oh, I can actually win this. A lot more adrenaline. A lot more greed in a way. But yeah, like I started off with, I think it's a terrible way for Piastri to get his first Formula One win, having to have Lando begged, basically, it was begged by his team to let him past.
Yeah. I find it an interesting one. I think McLaren, from my perspective, I was glancing at the results. I was in the pit lane in Formula E. I was like, 1-2 in qualifying for McLaren, 1-2 in the race.
Yeah.
And, great on paper, it's a perfect job. A similar thing happened in Formula E where Jaguar won the title. Both their drivers crashed out of the Drivers' Championship, and the team principal was up there spraying the champagne, and the drivers just stormed off. This kind of sort of like contradiction you have, where the team's done the best possible result it can get, but the underneath it, the team is more fractured than it was before.
Yeah.
So it's a short term.
And I mean, talking of fractured, Perez and his Red Bull situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I expected, but Perez. It seems to be that they might have some sort of performance clause that's activated after the summer break or something. This is my view on Red Bull is that, and we talked a lot about Red Bull earlier in the year. We drew a map of all the different protagonists in Red Bull, like Adrian Newey, and this was before people started. It's before Newey had left, by the way, and then we've got to go back and
we've got to redo it again.
But I felt then they renewed Perez for stability because there's so much instability in Red Bull.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's now the situation's just overtaken it, where they can't have the luxury of Perez is not actually he's not a stability, he's a liability.
Yeah.
So, but they're surely going to get rid of him. Did they put Daniel Ricciardo in?
I think they're going to put Daniel Ricciardo in. They know him. Yeah, I think he'll finish the season. Daniel at Red Bull as a nice, safe pair of hands. They use Liam as a backup for the second half of this year
In the V-Carb,
just to see how he does, and then. Next year, who's got it? I don't know. It'll be between Daniel and Liam.
Do you think if they put Daniel Ricciardo in the Red Bull, Yuki Tsunoda's going to throw his toys out the pram, considering he's done a lot better than...
I mean, Tsunoda deserves to be in Red Bull, in my opinion. He's driven faultless. Well, obviously he has the issues which every Formula 1 driver has. But he's driven well. He's proven himself. He does seem to get good results from bad qualifying type things. I think he will feel hard done by, but then he is a Honda driver. Aston Martin are going to have their engines by Honda.
Yeah.
You can't have a Honda driver for Red Bull and then Aston Martin being a Honda supply team, if that makes sense.
There's a contradiction there. I mean, everyone's assuming that he's going to go across as part of that. But I think if they put Tsunoda in the Red Bull, I just feel like it might be too combustible. Because Max Verstappen, we'll get on to Max Verstappen now, it really seems to have broken down and been called childish by his engineer, and it's all fun and games when Max is winning. He's always whined on the radio, and it's fine when you're winning to complain about the gearbox and the upshifts, but now there's genuine jeopardy. Then I feel like adding a Yuki Tsunoda to that mix could be Yuki Tsunoda.
He's a bit of a hothead.
Because think, well, I've got nothing to lose here in a way. I'm just going to go to Honda if Aston Martin if it doesn't work out. But Max Verstappen, obviously doing his sim racing till 3 a.m. What do you think? Is it one of the things that's fine if you're winning and it's not fine if you're not?
I think as long as it doesn't affect his personal performance. Crofty continuously all Sunday, must mention it 6-7 times, it's been noticed by everyone on the iRacing forums and stuff like that. It's like he's got to be in the bonnet about it. He's saying he shouldn't have done this, he shouldn't have done that. Well, remember he did the Nürburgring 24 at Imola and still won. I don't think that makes a difference to Max because he's that focused on Formula 1. This iRacing stuff is just a side project, a lot of fun he has.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with him doing it, as long as he turns up the next day. I think he did turn up. I think it now proves that the McLaren is a better car than the Red Bull. Max doesn't have it all his own way, but was that down to Max's own driving? I don't believe it was. I think even if he'd had a fresh 12 hours sleep, McLaren still would have
they're not going to make the car faster.
No, exactly.
But I feel like Max Verstappen sim racing is like a bit of an optics issue. It's another thing at Red Bull where they just want stability, and it's another vector for people to have a go at Red Bull. And again, his overtake on Hamilton, Christian Horner calling it a racing incident.
Yeah.
It just doesn't optically look good when you come in massively locked up, smoke coming out your tyre, and you make contact with the other car.
And out of all the cars you have to hit, it had to be Lewis.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, you could hit anyone else.
Do you think Max Verstappen is going to get caught in the Drivers' World Championship season? Do you think someone like Lando Norris, would you think the drivers behind are just going to be scrapping a little bit too much, like McLaren and Mercedes, Ferrari might come back into it?
I think the field's too tight now that I think Max will win the title, but it'll be really close purely because, like you just alluded to, the McLarens, the Mercedes, the Ferraris are so close now. They're all taking points each other. Whereas at the start of the season, Red Bull, Max built up a nice, healthy lead. And I think throughout the season, yes, they're going to get closer, but I think they're going to steal so many points off each other, it's not going to affect Max.
It's only a couple of bad results and DNFs away from, if he keeps getting himself into trouble, like we saw in Austria, where he's going to take damage to the car and get punctures, then we could see some 0-point scores. And if Lando's picking up 17, 18 points even, on the podium, that's going to be interesting.
Well, he's only 36 points ahead at the moment, I think. So that's, what's that? It's one DNF and Lando wins and all of a sudden it's 11 points.
And that's crazy because at the beginning of the season, I don't think McLaren were seen as the second team. I think it was Ferrari that were very much second team. But what an exciting season it's turning out. Looking forward, we've got Ferrari as well. Do you think Ferrari are going to come back, or do you think they're thinking about next season with Hamilton? That could be a real juicy.
I think they've. I don't know, but my gut feeling says to me that yes, they're still working on this year's car, but they're not pushing it as hard as all the other teams are. I think they're more preparing a base ready for Lewis next year. Is my opinion. Is Lewis regretting his decision to go Ferrari? Now we're seeing that Mercedes are second or third best team and Ferrari's the fourth best team.
We've had this conversation so many ways this season, because I think at the beginning we were like, it's just a bad move for Ferrari because Lewis looked like he was off the ball, getting beaten by Russell and all. And now Lewis is coming really strong off an incredible race win at Silverstone. I mean, unbelievable. And the amount of British winners, we're having now in Formula One is pretty crazy. In fact, there's so many winners. We've got Piastri as a winner this season. We've got Lando as a winner. We've got Hamilton as a winner. We've got Russell as a winner. We got Leclerc as a winner.
Yep,
and
Monaco.
And we had Carlos Sainz as a winner in Australia as well, and Verstappen.
Yep.
So unless I'm wrong, we've had 7 winners in Formula One this season. I don't think I've seen anyone say this, but that is an incredible number of winners.
7 winners in 12, 13 races?
Yeah, I mean, this is the most competitive season of Formula One we've seen for a very, very, very long time, and we're only halfway through.
Exactly, and I think it's only going to get more. I don't think there's going to be, there's only one more realistic winner left, and it's Perez. He's the only one who's...
Out of that 7, you've had 2 from every team apart from the most dominant team, and the constructors are unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see any other outside teams doing it because the gap is that big.
But you never know.
You never know, yeah.
We've had teams like Alpine win, or like...
Alpine last year.
Yeah, Alpine last year. Toro Rosso, go to places like Monza, stuff can happen. We're going to go to Spa next week. Goodness knows what the weather's going to be, but, if it's a tasty one at Spa... I just think it's going to be such an exciting season now, and it feels like we go into the real globe-trotting part of the season.
Yeah,
we go to we're still going to go to Circuit of the Americas. We're still going to go to Vegas,
Mexico.
We're still going to go to Mexico.
Yeah,
we're still going to go to Interlagos. Goodness me, we're still going to go to Abu Dhabi right at the end. There's some big circuits. Yep. Singapore as well. They feel like platforms, amphitheatres, like a big occasion. But they haven't been in the past. They've been sort of empty. It's been a bit like Las Vegas. It's been like a fake facade. Where it's all dressed up, but there's nothing on the line. But now there might actually be stuff on the line at Vegas, which Formula One are just going to be drooling over.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine the press? Now there's four teams or 8 drivers who can all win a race.
Yeah,
and like we just said, that doesn't rule out the people who might fluke win if it's a wet race. And the Alpines absolutely standing in the rain. So yeah, that's that. And just a random fact as well I read. Logan Sargent has outqualified Perez more times than he's outqualified Alex Albon. And actually Perez and Sargent are head-to-head equal on qualifying.
I think get Logan Sargent in the Red Bull. That's the message that I take from that. But I just think it's going to be super, super, super exciting, and it's for Formula One it's great. And the other good thing is that we've got another year of these regulations next year.
Yeah.
And it seems to be Red Bull were just so far in front. There's a couple of points I want to pick up on actually. One point is that I remember we did a podcast early on in the season, going back all the way to like Australia or somewhere, and I said I was just a bit annoyed that all the drivers are so matey.
Yeah.
And, you know, Max Verstappen had won and they were all shaking hands and all looking in a private jet. So I wanted a bit more spice. Don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, and you've definitely got that now.
Now we're getting that spice, Lando throwing the cap and everything, Verstappen toys up the pram. So I think that bit of spice is really, really, really good.
And it's making more people interested in Formula One again.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like no one wants to watch a procession.
Yeah.
And now, who's going to win? We don't know who's going to win. People are more interested in Formula One again.
And the other thing I want to say, which is a point that you made, it might even have been last season, I can't remember, but you said if you took Verstappen out of the equation, that it would be such an exciting battle for second.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, that's funny, but you know, Verstappen's never going to... Well, hang on, now Verstappen's sort of dropped back in. We're seeing what you said, which is that thing. We're seeing some of the qualifying margins now. The whole field in qualifying is in a ridiculously small margin that is almost...
Within the 10th and a half at Hungary, top 3.
Yeah, and then you look at like even getting into like Q2, sometimes it's like half a second or something. It's absolutely like everyone who makes it in, it's very, very, very close. So if you're new to Formula One and you're watching this, make sure you subscribe, obviously. And if you're a Formula One expert, I think let us know what you're thinking about the season so far in the comments here. And I just can't wait for the rest of the season. We're doing many more podcasts like this.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Hopefully dramatic moments and maybe some activity in the driving market as well. Maybe at Williams, actually.
There's still all this to go. Like only half the grid, half the seats are taken. Well, just over half the seats. Who's going to go where? And you got the news of Toyota possibly teaming up with Haas. There's so much news this year.
Change everything now.
Exactly. That can completely change the whole market.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining. And we'll see you next time.